Hello and welcome back to the WrightPassion podcast. In today's episode, we're going to embark on a new journey with the hero, the Blue Beetle. Who is the Blue Beetle? Well, there are three iterations of the Blue Beetle, but this primary one, we're going to focus on Jaime Reyes. Who is Jaime? What is the Blue Beetle? I'm going to get into all that, so don't worry. But the Blue Beetle is basically a superhero that has a scarab. The scarab provides superpowers. The powers are invisibility, sound manipulation, flight, teleportation, and pyrokinesis. And these powers help Blue Beetle be the best that he can be. Now, as I said, there are three iterations, but we're talking about Jaime Reyes. Jaime Reyes gets the scarab, a sacred tech or a piece of technology from Dan Garrett. Who's Dan Garrett? Dan Garrett was the first original Blue Beetle, but he was unable to use the scarab. But we later know why he was unable to use it, because Jaime Reyes, a Mexican American teenager, was chosen to use that scarab. So he was chosen and he unlocked the powers of the blue scarab to become the Blue Beetle. And as Jaime became the Blue Beetle, his world changed forever. As you can watch the film, look at the comic books, he became a new person. And we can learn many lessons from the Blue Beetle, and we're going to touch on them right now. What's the first thing we can learn from him? Embrace unexpected events. Embrace unexpected events means go with the flow. Whatever happens, just be okay with it. Well, you don't have to be okay with it, but use it to your advantage. So, as I said earlier, the scarab picked Jaime. He didn't choose it. If you asked him, would you choose to be the Blue Beetle? He'd probably tell you, no. He didn't want to have that superpower at first. It was just that the scarab latched itself onto him and chose him to be the successor or to be the superhero that wields that power. So this was kind of crazy for Jaime because he was just doing his own thing. He had everything planned out, or he was trying to figure himself out. He's a teenager. He's not worried about too much. And then all of a sudden he gets his powers and has just his life flipped upside down. Imagine that. Imagine you're just going about your day, enjoying yourself, and then all of a sudden you stumble upon some technology and your life has changed forever. You're going from just hanging out with your friends to all of a sudden you're next level with Batman, Superman, who else was it? Wonder Woman. You're with them in the big league. This was Jaime. And this was amazing for him. But he didn't see that at first. At first, he thought this was a big change. He had mixed emotions. He didn't know how to feel about it because where did this come from and why do I have this? This is what was filling his mind. These are the thoughts that kept coming into his head. And it wasn't until he embraced it that he was able to become the Blue Beetle and fully accept it. So that shows us a lot and that can teach us a lot. Because in our day-to-day lives, things happen. It might be in your job. You might have a certain role where you're respected. You feel good in it. But all of a sudden, your boss comes around and says, all right, I'm doubling the work for you. I'm doubling the workload. You have more to do, and I'm going to pay you the same way and still expect it of you to excel. Now, you're like, what in the world? Or it could be anything else. It can be school, any situation in life where what you're doing is good, but then all of a sudden, this new big task or this curveball is just thrown at you and you're expected to still show up. You're like, how do I even? But that's the beauty in it. Embrace the change, because one thing about life, change is going to happen. It will happen regardless of if you want it to or not, because things happen. No one day is going to be the same as the other day or the last day. Stuff is happening fast. People are growing up. You're not as young as you used to be. It's almost like a war zone. But embrace it. Go with the flow. There's a saying, when you're with change, see it as a river. Because when you go down that river, I messed it up. But basically, when you're going down a river, you don't want to go upstream. Don't fight against the river. Go with the flow. Go downstream. Go with it because you go faster instead of trying to fight against it. And when you fight against reality like that, you'll suffer the consequences. Because with your reality changing and you not accepting or adapting to it, you're going to risk yourself to experience pain, because you're going to experience the pain of your reality not being the same as reality itself. And this is going to hurt and suck. So you might as well embrace it and see what you can learn from it. Ask yourself some good questions. How can I get better because of this? What can I learn through this? Or how can I cope with this situation? Get yourself and get on your high horse. Don't let yourself just fall down to the ground and feel bad because of the situation. Embrace it, accept it, and get to work. Next, the power of technology. The power of technology is amazing. Nowadays, we can connect with people all the way across the other side of the world. Like, you can see someone from here, let's say you're in the US to China. That's just how amazing it is. So, for Jaime, his powers were just a godsend. He was able to do so many things with that suit. The tech was far advanced than what he had ever experienced. And that's that thing too, experience. He didn't have too much experience being a superhero. This was his first official time. So you can imagine how it was for him learning in a learning curve. He didn't know what he was doing. I mean, he knew some from like video games and TV shows, movies, but he didn't know how to be a superhero. But I'll say this, he was tech savvy. He was able to understand tech to a certain extent that helped him in navigating that suit. So with him being tech savvy, when he was able to use that suit, he was doing and thinking of any and every type of weapon, and he made a shield. He was able to create a shield. He could do all these things and learn. He was able to fight against all these supervillains. So, and when we're doing our things, whether it is you're an artist, you're a podcaster, athlete, or you just like cooking, involve technology in it. That can mean you can go on social media, post your stuff on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Do these things because these things will help you to improve what you're already good at, your skill. You'll be able to showcase your skill to everybody and connect with people that are like-minded like you. Because with you doing that one skill and focused, you want to surround yourself with people that are the same way. And so, just like Jaime was, that you can be an ally to them in any and every circumstance. Because with you having that skill, you want to keep it and use it like a muscle. You want to keep it warm and ready. But when you don't use it and you see the power of technology and don't use the technology the right way or even at all, you're missing out on so many possibilities. And I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying it's wise to, because now with technology, you're able to reach so many people. What is the word? Your reach is so far now. All you have to do is just put the right things in place, the right systems in place to reach like-minded people and find your tribe that will keep you motivated, keep you focused, because you'll need that. So the power of technology is vital in today's society or modern society. Number 3, rising to the occasion. Rising to the occasion might be my favorite point out of the Blue Beetle. Because becoming a superhero is not all what it's cracked up to be. It's not fun and games. I'm going to go off on a limb right here. So I'll describe being a superhero. So instead of you getting scared and running away from the monsters, you run toward them. But imagine you're running toward the monster. You have to deal with this just about every day. Now, some superheroes love it. Others, I don't know if they enjoy waking up every day saying, I got to save the world. I mean, I don't know if I would. because a lot of them have lives outside of being a superhero. So when you're a mom, dad, teenager, or just in school, you have all these roles. Imagine adding another stressor of being a superhero. That's a lot. That is a lot to handle. So it comes with things. It comes with good and bad. But back to the point, rising to the occasion. For Jaime, he had to understand and learn who he was at first. Had to change. He had to rise to the level of the competition. He had to know who I am right now is not going to be good enough to take on these supervillains. I've got to improve. He had to sit down, focus, and practice. He had to actually spar, learn how to fight, and learn how to actually take on these supervillains. Because he was not too experienced. He wasn't experienced. He didn't know what to expect. And this is just his first time going out there, so he is very green. With him being green, he had to get in those hours of practice and experience. Not only that, he had to work on his belief. And once he did, over a slow course of time, he began to rise to the occasion and win his battles. Because you might say you're ready for battle and think that you can just rise to the occasion, but your experience won't. Because sometimes you go out there and think that you're going to do amazing. Take, for instance, sports. Let's say basketball. Let's say you're going against a 5-star athlete. You believe in your heart, I can destroy him. When you get out there, he's going to mop the floor with you. You're going to lose. You're going to be horrible. You might even get crossed over, dunked on. All those things are going to happen. But it's okay. Because for you to get to that next level, you have to take that punishment. You have to take looking bad in front of people and the crowd laughing at you, figuratively speaking. People are going to look at you in your life and they may laugh at you or say something negative, but that's okay. Because when you're out here being who you want to be or who you know you need to be and living out your truth, people are going to say something good, bad, negative, it don't matter. So for you, as I go back to the point in our lives, rising to the occasion, that means we have to go out there and put our best foot forward, regardless of if we look good or look bad. You might get, as I said, crossed over, dunked on, laughed at. All those things may happen, but it's okay. It's building you because you're burning off or you're shedding that skin of who you used to be, and now you're growing into who you need to be. You're rising to the occasion for the competition because it's not all cracked up how it's supposed to be. Like when you think that it's gonna be sweet or easier on the other side, it won't. You have to actually grow. You have to rise. You have to go through the things and the circumstances, the situations that builds you up there. Because as I said, when we go back to Jaime, he just wasn't all of a sudden, all right, I'm the best superhero out here. I can stand on my toes, 10 toes down, just like Superman. It took him some time. He had to earn his stripes. He had to go through some situations that built him into the Blue Beetle. So know that if you're going through things in life, when you're when you're starting to rise to the occasion, that's a good thing. That means you're learning, that means you're growing, and that means that you're actually getting somewhere. Because if you're not going through any storms to become the best version of yourself, you're probably staying the same. Because in order for you to grow, you're going to have to look bad. You're going to have to get mopped the floor with. Everything's going to have to look like it sucks. Because in that time, you're growing. You're showing up and you're building that resilience that helps you through those situations. So don't worry about what happens as you rise. Just make sure that you keep showing up every day and putting your best foot forward. And as you do that, just watch and see what happens. And lastly, learning and adapting. Learning and adapting was I feel like these were his bread and butter because he had to do this. If you look at Blue Beetle, he was in 2 teams. He was on the Teen Titans and he was also in the Justice League. So he had to learn from both teams who was whose roles were whoever, and adapt to each team and the personalities. So learning, it kind of comes back to rising to the occasion. When you learn, it's not always going to be good. You're going to take some L's, take some losses, but you're learning. You're able to figure out what works and what doesn't work in situations. And then this is where adaptability comes in. Through you learning and putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations, you're able to adapt. You're able to adapt because you keep showing up. You keep showing up and figuring out, okay, for me to survive in these situations, what do I need to do? And we'll move back to Jaime. For him to adapt with both teams, he had to take on a certain role that helped him to grow and just stay a part of the team. So with the Teen Titans, he might have been a little bit more vocal. Justice League, he wasn't as vocal, but he was more so learning and ready to spar with whoever it was. So these things, being resourceful is what helped him. He had to figure out, all right, how can I stay afloat and be a valuable team player or team member, a part of these different groups? Because what helped me at this team is definitely not going to help me with this team. So he used his brain and he actually asked himself some smarter questions, some good questions. What can I do to improve these situations and stay afloat? You can ask yourself these same questions too when you're going about in your life, because things will change. Your job role might change. You might be working with some experienced veterans or people that have years under their belt. And then flip it, you might be working with some people that are younger than you that have zero experience, and you're the veteran or the person that they look up to. How are you going to adapt? What are you going to do? Are you going to do the same thing that you did with the people that had years of experience that you do with the younger generation or younger people? And that's not just for work. I'm talking about in any situation, friend group, people that my mind is drawing blanks, but just in any situation where you're going out and my mind is really drawing blanks, but you're interacting with people. What are you going to do? Because you can't treat every situation the same. How you talk to your mom and dad, you cannot talk to your friends or partner the same way. This is not going to work. You have to adapt. You have to learn how to carry yourself around certain people, what you're going to do in certain situations, and just basically how to survive and get better. We're all about getting better. So focus on these things. Ask yourself good questions. Don't just sit there and think, oh, eventually it's going to change. One day it'll just change. Everybody's going to understand me. No, they're not. Most of the time, people do not care about what you got going on. They're worried about themselves. So you need to take personal accountability and figure out how can I get better? What am I going to do? It starts now. Make the decision now, and then decide. After you decide, go take some action. Make one small decision. Take the smallest action toward it. Right now, if you want to do that, you could just write it down. That'd be the best action you can take towards becoming more adaptable or whatever goal you have. So after saying all that, I hope you learned something from Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes' version. He's also got a movie, so watch the movie. See what else you can learn from the movie or the Blue Beetle, and how you can actually change your life, because we're all about growing and learning in this podcast. So these heroes have some very valuable lessons in their stories and in their journeys. And granted, you can even look at them as a way to cope, because some of the issues you may be facing in your day-to-day life, those heroes might have faced the same situations but came out differently than how you are. So take that into account. Go watch some of your favorite superheroes and see how did they deal with these stresses and pressures of everyday life. What did they do what they do in response from this stressor to this stressor? How did they cope? Go check it out. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Right Passion podcast. I hope you learned something very helpful and got some very valuable lessons from this podcast. Don't just listen to them and don't do anything. Listen to them, use them, and go about your life in a new, more positive way. Ignite your passion.